moves with the air like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along.
So I'm speaking with one of the most iconic and well-known musicians of our generation. His work is known around the globe, and he's been a defining voice of his industry. He's a songwriter, a performer, a musician, a producer, and he's a film composer. He co-scored Despicable Me with Heitor Pereira and wrote some amazing songs for the film, which went on to become a global phenomenon. He returned to write new songs for Despicable Me 2, including the song Happy. His collaborations with composer Hans Zimmer have introduced him to the film music world. Beyond Despicable Me 1 and 2, he wrote and produced music with Hans for the 84th Annual Academy Awards telecast. He was a featured musician on Hans' score for Man of Steel, and he'll be co-composing the amazing Spider-Man 2 with Hans. Pharrell Williams, thank you so much for your time and chatting today.
Well, thank you. And that was quite a little,
Quite an introduction.
quite a little presentation there. Yeah, it was a very nice one. So I appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
To start, though, I would love to know what does music mean to you personally, and why did you pursue it as a career?
Well, music to me, in my older years, I realized music was medicinal. Mm-hmm. But as a child, I just thought that everybody saw music that way. I used to see colors and stuff when I hear music, and certain chords would always give me like a color, like a paralleling meaning and feeling, even though it was just like a color, that I was sort of listening to. And then, when I got like 12 or 13, I realized that like not everybody saw music that way, but there were a lot of people, but not everyone, So sometimes, in making those kind of references, it was kind of like, what are you talking about? And that's when I realized that, some people see music in colors, some people see, graphics in colors or in different shapes, or, it's called synesthesia. Many people hear music in many, many different ways. But once my teacher saw some sort of propensity in me for music, I was just always strongly urged to try out music. And my grandmother, when I was a child, was like, you should learn the drums. Like, you love, playing percussively. So that's what music is. It's my best friend, and it's always there for you. It never lets you down. That's what music is to me, and that's how I've always looked at music.
I agree with that completely, because I'm not a musician. I come from the other side. I'm a fan of music and film music and all that, and growing up I kind of had the other side of it. It was my kind of medicinal thing. It became kind of, something I could lean on, so I totally get that completely, 100%. So you have an amazing musical career, and we could spend hours, I'm sure, just talking about everything that has led up to now, but I would love to focus on your film music work. And so at what point did you decide that you wanted to try your hand at scoring? Was there any reservation at first, or did you just decide to jump right in?
Well, it was animation, so it was like, man, I really want to do something in the animation space. And so when given the shot, I didn't hesitate, and it, under the auspices of Hans, over at Remote Control, and having all those great guys just teach me the way. Mm-hmm. And I really learned a lot, so it was awesome.
And were you a film score fan before getting involved in writing them? Any particular scores that made like a big impression on you?
Yeah, of course, Hans's work, and John Williams. I mean, there's so many of those guys. But I can say this: I learned, just in working with scoring and understanding how it works.
Right.
Like, I feel like my music has become a lot better.
Oh yeah, I can imagine it kind of gives you more of a emotional touch with how music works, since you're kind of working with images instead of lyrics. And Despicable Me was, I mean, it was a fantastic score, and the songs were just perfect. And you worked with Heitor, who is an amazing guy. I've interviewed him several times. I love him. What was that collaboration like? Did you lean on him for support, given it was kind of your first time scoring a film?
I did lean on him. I leaned on him, but I you know, it was more about like I just wanted to learn while I was working. You know, I wanted to make sure that like every time we ended up doing something that we would keep. I just wanted to make sure I was still learning at the same time.
Right. And so does your score writing process differ from your songwriting process? If you're doing both, you know, kind of like on Despicable Me, which comes first, the song or the score?
Well, with music in general, it's just sort of like a blank canvas. You know, you determine what you're going to do and in what context you're going to put it in and why you're doing it, and, you know. And, you know, once you figure out all those answers, then there you have it. You have something that makes sense for you musically. But, like, when we're dealing with a film, you're dealing with the animation, what the director actually wants. Because the music in most films are like a roller coaster. You know, they take you on these emotional roller coasters of going up and down, sideways, diagonal, you know, forward, backward, upside down, whatever it takes to get that thrill. And that is what they try and do in movies. I would say most of them are largely successful with it. And you know, you're watching a brilliant film is when the music, the aesthetic, the actors, the actresses, and the through line all work in concert so well that you can't really separate them. It's almost like listening to an orchestra and hearing the whole entire piece together, but not necessarily being able to identify each individual section. That's when you know something is working in concert. Absolutely. And to me, that was the only thing, was to not have the music become distracting. You know, you could make something that you felt like was the hottest thing in the world, but it may not fit with where the director wants everyone's emotions to go. Because remember, this is a curated, you know, animation is a curated experience. So I really learned a lot. You know, I learned a lot from Heitor. I learned a lot from Hans. Like, you know, those guys held my hand the whole entire way and never let me go until I felt like I had it. And I'm always going to look to them because they're like, you know, the masters at this, and they've been doing it for years. Right now, you know, while I'm thankful for the credit and the generosity of the studios, I think more than anything else, like, it's like free class, you know?
Yeah. So as a composer, or as a musician in general, as a storyteller, what about a film or a story inspires you the most out of everything, that really kind of gets your ideas flowing musically? Is it the story, the characters, I mean, I mentioned you talked about seeing colors. Does the cinematography have any play in the color palette to how it gets your kind of ideas flowing for the score?
Sure. I mean, it could come from anything. It could come from lyrics, could come from a conversation. You know, sometimes a conversation, you can sort of match that emotion of the conversation with the chords.
Yeah.
So it varies.
Just kind of, yeah, I guess, I mean, it depends on the project. I guess every project is different, and also collaboration is such a huge part of, I think, your process as well as Hans's process. You know, you collaborate with artists like Daft Punk and Robin Thicke and your group NERD in your songwriting. How important is collaboration and working with other musicians to your process now as a filmmaker, as a film composer?
Collaboration is like a gift. You know, I think a lot of times people just look at it like, oh, me and this person are doing something together. No, actually you're doing much more. You guys are like, you know, blending energy, blending your ideas, trading ideas. Like, it's a really learned process, you know, like you learn a lot. It's just super informational. And to me, I think anybody who's doing a collaboration, who's literally just sitting there dictating everything and not necessarily paying attention to what the other person is thinking or feeling, is missing the point. There's
Right.
so much that we can learn from you know, other people's processes, you know.
And I think
Really invaluable stuff.
yeah, and I think it's more, not even a bit better for the ideas, but there's a lot of people who are very kind of sticklers, like, oh, it should be one voice and one idea. But I'm kind of on board with collaboration because it really, you can bounce your ideas off, other people you're working with, and I think it benefits everybody as a whole. But so you're scoring the amazing Spider-Man 2 with Hans, and a few other big names I saw come up, like Johnny Marr and Michael Einziger and Dave Stewart. So are you and Hans the title composers? Will it read music by Hans Zimmer and Pharrell Williams on the credits for this one?
It may be a little early for me to answer that question.
Okay. I understand.
But it's super cool. It's such an awesome opportunity, and Hans could not have been more generous with this title.
Uh-huh. And you guys are building kind of a band here, kind of a band approach, which he's done a couple times on his films, and you worked with a bunch of great percussionists on Man of Steel, and I can't wait to hear what you guys come up. But looking at, superhero movies are extremely popular, and so now you're a voice behind them. What do you want to try to do differently here that hasn't been said before?
With what? With Spider-Man?
Yeah, just
or just in general.
Spider-Man, and you're going to be doing the score. I know you can't talk too much in detail about it, but are there any specific ideas that you'd love to try out with this? Try to kind of implement?
Oh yeah. Oh man, it was crazy, the stuff that we were able to pull off. It's just you love it when things come together because it doesn't have to. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Especially when it's like a half-court shot.
Yeah,
The fact that everything has been coming through so crisp and fits together, man. It just fits together in such a wonderful way. It's seamless. This is a really good word. And that's when like the process is going right.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait to hear it. I'm so excited. So you're part of the superhero world now. If you could pick any one superpower, which one would it be?
Oh, Magneto, for sure. Even though he wasn't a good guy, but I still liked his power.
And if you could pick one superhero theme that's ever been composed, that could be your theme, which superhero theme would you pick?
I used to like the Justice League. When I was a kid, I used to like that theme music.
Oh wow, that's a great answer. That's awesome. Veering away from all the current films and everything. So you've been immersed in the film music world now as a composer, as a musician, and a songwriter. What are your ambitions now as a composer? For Pharrell Williams, the composer. Are you going to be sticking around and hopefully working on more projects in the future?
Oh man, I can't wait.
I can't wait to hear you. I love hearing new voices, and I think every great composer has come from kind of your background as well. Hans back in the day with the Buggles, and Danny Elfman, Oingo Boingo. So it's going to be exciting to hear what you have to offer. So does film composing offer you anything different than as an artist? Does it offer anything that you couldn't do as a songwriter?
Well, you know what? One thing it definitely does is brings foreign textures and foreign perspective to the table that I may never have thought of ever. So it's awesome to see what a writer is thinking, a screenwriter, or, to see, what a scene is being taken, so you look at it and you realize that, okay, it's set in this situation. It seems like this is about to happen, but maybe something completely different happens,
Right.
It's like walking into a store. The store could get robbed, but I'm pretty sure there's 364 other days that doesn't happen at all, and all kinds of crazy things happen. There's a variety of things. It's just, but we're so used to, we see a diner, then someone's gonna leave her number on a napkin or some shit. That's just very predictable. And what I love about films is that it's not always predictable, especially when you're lucky enough to pick the right ones. Well, when you're lucky enough to get the call from the right ones, I should say, that's the magic part, man. That's the magic part. Our job is to just continue to make the experience seamless.
I agree. It's magic.
Yeah, because the thing is that when one thing sticks out, then it just ruined the whole entire experience. It's like a fray, in their sweater.
It calls attention to itself. Yeah.
Yeah, and you go yanking on it, trying to fix it before you know it. There's an even bigger hole. So it's like.
That's a great analogy. I love that.
Well, yeah. So everything has to be even, and everything needs to just feel like one fluid motion of emotion and music. So that that's always the aim.
Well, I just can't wait to hear your music, what you and Hans and everybody else comes up with for Spider-Man 2 and everything you do in the future. I love Despicable Me and what you and Heitor did, and I'm also just a huge fan of your music in general, your work as a songwriter. I have huge respect for you, and I thank you so much for your time today and for speaking, and hopefully maybe we can do this again. Maybe have more to talk about once Amazing Spider-Man comes out. But Pharrell, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, man. I appreciate your time and all of those great, curious questions. And I hope to everybody listening, I hope they had a good time.
Well, I'm sure everyone's
and found it as enjoyable as I did. I totally appreciate the opportunity.